Hi, welcome back to part 2 of this conversation on the Sexual Offences Bill. My name is Lisa Kanyomozi-Waboni, and this is Conversations with Kanyomozi. I have the very beautiful, intelligent, well-read, my land friend, Elizabeth Kemigisha, with me, and she is a feminist lawyer working with the Uganda Women's Association of Lawyers. Yes. She's also a host for Black No Sugar, and I'm going to plug them in our comment section, in our description box, because they have great content and they unpack amazing conversations. I learned from them. So let's get back into it. So we're talking Sexual Offences Bill. And in part 1, if you've not watched it, in part 1 we do talk about what the bill was made for, what its impact has been, what happened, and then we touch on what went wrong when it comes to Sexual Offences Bill 2019 and the amendment that was made recently. So, the bill.
What poured the
What
bill?
poured? What went wrong? But before we get into what went wrong, I know people are always like, hey, you guys, you only see the bad, you only see the...
True.
What was the good in the amendment?
Yeah, some of the things that we believe, one, because I'm currently associated with civil society, so I'll speak from that perspective, but also because I'm a feminist, I also get a chance to sort of commune with other groups that have interest in this kind of work. So I think one of the clauses that we thought was extremely critical and a win in that bill was one on administering a substance with the intent to commit a sexual act. Yeah, initially the bill spoke about, for example, me, Elizabeth, administering something to your drink for me to have sexual activity with you. It has widened the ambit within which they'll find a person guilty. So if person X administers something to your drink in order for me to have my way with you, then
that person is also
which I think is what happens many times. So I know that many rapists usually go through bartenders in the bar to sort of administer the drink. So we just thought that this was a very beautiful thing to include in the Sexual Offences Bill, given what was happening in 2018 with university students, but also generally women who go out to enjoy their lives in the bars. We also thought the clause on having a register for sex offenders has been a big dream for a lot of people in this country. On how it will work, I think we are going to get there. On whether it will be accessible, I know there's been conversations with different women's rights institutions on what will access look like. Will it be open to everyone in communities? If it's not accessible, then what is it serving? You get, if I need to write a letter to access this information, then is it really helping communities? That we'll look at elsewhere, but at least we also had this win in here. There's also something about indecent communication. Though in there it had its weaknesses, but would also give it to them. This was something very good about it. There's also something about sexual indecent. Indecent. Now this is one which has been severally used. It relates to a clause in the Anti-Pornography Act on revenge porn. The trouble is that it takes away some of the important things in there of consent. That if I'm in a relationship with you, Lisa, and I sent you something, a naked picture of myself, so it will not matter if the two of us consented to it.
We both get arrested.
Yes, so it has its good pieces, but also in there a clawback clause. And given the history of how that clause has been used under the Anti-Pornography Act, it's been mostly the women that are victims that have continued to be harassed by police and the Committee of Pornography. So we think there's a clawback clause in there that we needed to have thought about before. There's also something on sexual exploitation of children, where they take away consent of a child. I know this has been common in conversation in spaces with conversations on child trafficking or human trafficking for sexual exploitation. So many people have been saying, some of these girls accept these things. Plus, she's 16, so that's close to 18. I know. So the fact that consent has been taken away as a defense also sort of strengthens and serves the core purpose of the bill, enhancing punishment and protection for victims of sexual assault. So we cannot finish all of them, but I feel like those were core to, bringing out some of, or speaking a life into what they wanted to initially do with the Sexual Offences Bill.
So now that we've talked about the commendable, let's get into, I want to set it and put, however, the however part of this conversation,
yes,
what is creating all this, feedback from the public, especially from feminists, from women's organizations, from people who do any work in regards to sexual assault, rape, and so on. What were the setbacks that were mentioned in this new amendment that will gravely affect, victims when it comes to reporting?
Yeah, I'll begin with one of the things that I feel like we have forgotten because it was removed out of the bill at a really early stage, the one on marital rape.
Yes.
And I cannot just emphasize the statistics on how many women. Yeah, and through the work I do at FIDA, you will listen to women's stories every day. And it's their partners, their husbands, their spouses doing this kind of things to them, raping them right after they've given birth or so because the man can't wait, or trying to have anal sex with them because they feel that the vagina is no longer tight enough. I know. So I feel like because marital rape was removed at an earlier stage, we sort of forgot about it because the revolution is taking us, you see. But yeah, that's one of the things that we thought were important to have on. Yes, there's been a progress on even us before not talking about it to Parliament, trying to legislate on it. Yes. But we cannot celebrate almost, really, because there are women out there dying because of sexual violence.
Almost, yes.
There's also a clause that personally pained me, the one on consent. So as we speak right now, basically our Parliament said rape is legal. Right?
In a lot of words.
In many words.
But like that's the bottom line.
Yeah, so you cannot withdraw consent during sexual activity right now in this country. Yes,
and sexual activity goes, I know, because we spoke about this, but like it goes from the point that I agree to enter a room with person A. If I have agreed, and midway of us entering them and the door closing, I say no, and they continue to have their way. Yeah, I have no legal standing.
Do not. Yeah, that's what essentially it means. And I do not think that maybe the legislature looked at it as far as that. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe one thing that we didn't speak about in our first session was on something that the Sexual Offences Bill was also trying to do to sort of correct some of the things that we felt, fill the gaps that are in the Penal Code Act that speaks about some of these sexual offences that were being re-emphasized in this Sexual Offences Bill, and one of them is really rape. So we thought this bill would be a space for it to enhance punishment for it, to sort of describe it better, and that would include me withdrawing consent. And the descriptions that our parliamentarians were giving, that day I was dumbfolded. Like, no. The example on the aeroplane when it sets off and those many things. And then when we get to a room, what do you mean along the way you've said no? I remember one of the MPs saying, many of these Ugandan women, they will say no, but what they mean is that they are enjoying continue. I mean...
Because the word yes is...
Yes, you see. So it's very tricky. I remember one of the MPs saying that, we need to punish some of these women who extort gifts from men with promises of giving them sex and they do not. And yeah, I was like, no, yes.
But like this whole why I'm so confused is because so many people send themselves, I've had personal experience where people send themselves to gift you with the assumption that as much as they gift you, you're finally going to accept.
Yes.
So now in that case, when that person...
You'll be punished for that kind of behavior if this bill is assented to by the president. Okay. So we felt that was horrible if you're trying to enhance protection for victims. But also another clause that we feel was really dangerous to leave in the act was one on false allegations of rape being punishable. When we look at the statistics, Lisa, you can't.
Like I was just about to say, the fact that there is jail time and 2 years of jail time. That's correct. 2 years, 24 months of someone going to jail. And the thing is, it's such a blurry line. There's one thing of, yes, I woke up in the morning and I said this man raped me when he did actually rape me. But however, you did explain to us how there's a possibility of you losing the case and then you going to prison. But like there's so much, there's blurred lines on reporting and like justice when it comes to rape in Uganda. And then I feel a lot of perpetrators of rape are going to have a field day with this specific close.
Yes, because if you've worked with in spaces where you extend any nature of assistance to sexual violence victims, you'll know that the process is difficult. This person retelling this occurrence, many times that these many things. A lot of women who report sexual, violence are met with skepticism and disbelief. So now imagine that I have to now deal with the fact that if I am not believed, or if it turns out, if this man says I did not do it and maybe has an alibi, I'm going to serve a time. Now imagine how many more women are going to not report. You see, so it's horrible because women are already dealing with a lot, with the system that is difficult to navigate, with the system that may not hear your case in a timely manner.
Exactly.
With the system where we know that rape and defilement victims, for example, are usually people known to us.
Yes.
So it could be an uncle. It could be a spouse.
It's an intimate partner. It could be a brother. It could be a cousin.
So it becomes then difficult. We are not extending the nature of protection that we envisage to extend.
And what ideally your bill was created for.
Yeah. So we felt that those were really dangerous. We do not have enough time, but I know even the one on natural and unnatural offences and sex work is further criminalizing the existence of people in this country.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the issue with also the sexual offences register that said there would also, people that are found guilty of prostitution and of unnatural offences will also be in there. So imagine the homophobia that
is,
that you're
under.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uganda is a lot. I keep saying, as Ugandans, I see why you're always drinking. It's a lot. Nonetheless, what is the way forward? What can we do? We have time. And I like that you mentioned that before the president assents to this bill. So we have a couple of months, hopefully. We have days and weeks. What do we do in the meantime to ensure that that bill is not passed?
Oof. What can we do? No, Ugandans, what can we do? Maybe our MPs, our new MPs should tell us, what do you want us to do to support you? I'll just share maybe from perspective of the institution where I come from FIDA, what we really think should happen now. I know that the bill has, like we've mentioned, a lot of wins in there, but also continues to trample on the rights of some other groups of people that it was intended to protect. So can we then look into the new parliament coming up with a mechanism of protecting some of the vulnerable groups that have further been, oppressed by this bill? Yeah. We need to collectively think, one, as individual organizations that are doing this work in our different communities, local leaders, feminist groups. Maybe this is a time for us to start rethinking.
Yes.
I know there was a lot of division while we were thinking about or analyzing the acts, with seeing so many CSOs looking at the groups that they do work with. Is this the time for us to reconvene, to rethink what will the mechanism look like? Because recalling back that bill is also a lengthy process. I don't think we do have the resources right now if that bill got recalled back. Looking at how long our bills usually take, the marriage and divorce bill, now marriage bill, we are about to have grandchildren and it's still going to be here. So recalling it back is going to be very expensive for the parliament to have. But maybe we could use the opportunity that we have new MPs to reorient them, to help them see the gaps in there. And maybe we can come up, is it going to be a guideline of implementation of this act? Is it going to be a new policy? What will it be called? But we need to immediately think about a protection mechanism right now to fill these gaps. Otherwise, we've left a lot of room.
Yes.
And we've not answered many of the questions that we intended to answer with this bill.
Fantastic. You've heard it right here. Thank you so much for watching Conversations with Kanyomozi. Thank you for your time and your brains.
Thank you for watching.
Until next week. Bye-bye.